thank you so much for coming. My name is Lindsay Smith, and I work with successful 20-somethings in this area, but then also nationally. And together we come up with a plan to get you the finances you need, the relationships you really long for, and a career that you love that's going to impact the world. And so tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about things that you can start doing right now in this little seminar to change the trajectory of how you go about your next steps. I've met with some of you, you're kind of getting to the point where you're ready to be done with schooling and move into the professional realm. And there's some real great tips that I'm going to walk you through, some exercises that we're going to do together as kind of a little group to get you mentally prepared for that big transition that's about to happen in your world. And so some of you may have seen that 53% of college graduates are either underemployed, so they're working at maybe a Starbucks, or they're not employed at all. And to me, as somebody who serves 20-somethings, that is shocking. And I'm sure for most of you, that rumbles around in your head, because we all have a friend who has a friend, I have a brother, I have a sister who's in that position right now. So my job is to help get us out of any type of fear mentality that we may be in and make some constructive steps forward today. So the first thing we're going to talk about are 3 lies that 20-somethings, and you don't have to be 20-something, basically anybody who's graduating from university setting, 3 lies that we easily believe. And the reason we're going to talk about this first is because your beliefs right now are shaping the decisions that you're making. There are people in my field who go into huge Fortune 500 companies and talk to CEOs about this same thing. So there's beliefs that you have, whether or not they're true, we're going to find out tonight. But there's beliefs that you have that are shaping your decision making and the outcomes that you're experiencing. And so I'm just going to point out 3. Hey, if this is one you're believing, let's stop for a minute and look at it and see how true it really is. So the first belief that we tend to have is our process around what it even means to be successful. So what would you say is the message that you've received about what it means to be a successful person? What are some of the ways that we determine if we've been successful? Anybody have an idea? Salary.
Your own, I guess, like, kind of happiness, I guess, or...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are 2 great examples. And actually, there's been a lot of research around your salary and your happiness. Because most of us would say, man, if I just made 6 figures, I worked my butt off at IUPUI, if I just made 6 figures, it'd be like, oh, I've done it, I've arrived. But actually, there's been a lot of research around salary, and different universities have done research programs around this. But what we find is that when you make over $50,000 a year in the United States of America, your happiness, your self-report of how happy you are does not change after you've made $50,000. So for most of us, that's not going to be your first job unless you are, in a serious grad program and a PhD program. If you're coming out as an undergraduate, you probably won't have, be making $50,000 statistically, which is okay because you'll get into it real quick. You'll be able to climb the ladder. But $50,000 really isn't that much money. And man, if I'm making $50,000 and Sally over here is making $120,000, you're telling me that if we both reported our levels of happiness in life, it wouldn't be different? Nope. Fascinating. So if the problem with this is that we focus on money being our kind of number 1 measurement of success, you see how that might be an issue real quick? Because $50,000, that's all it takes? Well, let's aim even higher. Let's talk about what success would actually mean to you today. So not what the world says it is, because a lot of times you've grown up in a culture, maybe in your home, maybe here, and you've been sent messages about what it means to be a successful person. And some of you are carrying those messages around and they weigh you down. You might hear it like, man, if I've got to get at least a 4.0. Oh my gosh, I've got to get a good job out the gate, because if I don't and my friends do, then I'm going to have to tell them that I'm not up to par. And we've all had those thoughts, right? Okay, so we're just going to explore this idea of success a little bit. And even more so, in the next step, I'm going to give you an opportunity to define success for yourself so it fits you. One of the big things that's changing developmentally in our culture for you right now is that you're crossing over from everybody kind of telling you what to do, right? In high school, like you legally have to attend high school. You don't get away with that. And most of our parents legally make us want to go to college. That's like, you will be going. That's not a question. And so what's happening is you're getting into this season of life where all of a sudden the rules change. Okay, you did everything society told you to do. You went to a great school, you graduated, and now nobody's telling me what to do. So how do I define my future? How do I define success if it's not a check off with my parents? Yep, still getting 4.0, still getting it, still getting it. Now you have to take just a little bit of time and start deciding in your future, how are you going to measure success for yourself? So we're going to do an exercise in a few minutes, but another myth I want to touch on while we're here is how we attain success. So this is another, when I'm working with 20-somethings, this is something we talk about a lot. When you look back on your life, take a moment, think about all the steps it took you to get here, right? So some of you went to really competitive high schools, maybe private schools. You worked your tail off to get great grades, to get a scholarship to be here. Some of you played a lot of sports, you had a lot of friends and relationships, and you took a lot of time to network, and you're really good at meeting people, and you find that, man, over the last 4 years I've met a lot of powerful people that are helping me get in the door. But just take a moment and think, what are all the steps that brought me to this point today? There's a lot of them. There's a lot of doors that had to open. And when we look back on our lives, we kind of see it like linear. So this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and now I'm here. But when we look into our future, and we try to say, well, this is going to happen, then I'm going to go through this door, then this is going to work out, man, all of a sudden we feel stressed, don't we? Because everything has to work out. My future's so narrow. It's like looking down the wrong side of a funnel. Like I'm looking down into it and there's only two options. So when we think about another myth around success, how I attain success, I want you to take just a moment and think about, instead of moving into the future as this very narrow path where I have to go through certain doors to ever make it, I want you to think about your future like a target. So right now, think about a target that's got 3 red rings on it, and the center is that big red dot. That's what you want to hit, right? So in this season of life, you're trying to find activities, opportunities, people that move you closer to the center of your target. You're going to do some activities, you're going to say, you know what, that really didn't move me closer to the center of my target. I'm going to discard it for now. This activity, getting to know all these other chemists, man, that's really inspiring me. It's getting me indoors I couldn't get in before. That's moving me towards the center of my target. I want you to think about that there's 360 degrees. There's all these different ways that you can get to the center. There's not one prescribed way to get there. And when we read stories of people who've been very successful, you'll find that their story, in hindsight, looks linear, but as they were going, they're going, man, I don't know how this is going to work out. Let me try this. Let me try this. Let me try this. And they're trying to get to the center of their target. So you have a lot of opportunities, especially as a college graduate. You have a ton of opportunities, more than you are able to see right now, probably because we're just all afraid that we're not going to get a job when we get out. So think about, man, there's probably 360 degrees in a circle, 360 different ways I can move to the center. Right now, you're probably thinking of one. This is how it's got to be. When I graduated from school, I graduated with a degree in psychology and public communications. All my friends moved to LA and New York. Some of them are PR, associates who work for huge names who meet J-Lo and Beyonce and all these ridiculous people. And I used to think in my head, the only way I'm successful is if I have a corner office in New York City, at least 11th floor or higher. I don't want to be on the ground. I want to be up there looking down. All glass windows. This was my idea of success. And there was only one way to get there. I had to move to New York City. I had to start networking into television shows and people who I'd known who worked for social media, or media, not social media. And you know what I found? Okay, I'm not a city person. That's going to be a problem. And I really don't enjoy this industry enough to dedicate my life to it. So very quickly, I realized that is not the center of my target. I don't know how I got so off. I don't really want to go down that road. So what I started to do was discover things that I really enjoy and see how they move me towards the center. So what else can you do with a degree in public communications? Well, you can be a public speaker. You can make YouTube videos and monetize them. You can make commercials. There's so many other ways I could use my skill set, and I started to see that and explore all the other opportunities I had. So that's when you think about a target and moving towards the center, there's way more opportunities that open up to you. And sometimes you might misstep, and that's okay. That's part of target practice. So our third lie that's so easy to believe is that one mistake, I'm going to fail. I am not allowed to fail. At this point, I have worked so hard. I am at the top of my class. If I screw up, that is it. This, again, is a linear view of your future. It's like me walking right on the edge of this. Man, if I just take a half step this way, I'm going to break my ankle, right? I'm not going to be able to handle that. So when we think of failure, thinking about it more as feedback, right? Okay, so I went to try this new internship. I did a internship in radio. Totally was not my bag, the way that it played out. But as I did it, I thought, this isn't a failure. Now I've learned. I'm not as interested in this as I thought. So now I can move where? Closer to the center of my target. I'm narrowing in. I'm slowly zoning in on exactly what I'm going to do. And guess what? It's not going to happen tonight. It's going to happen over the next decade. You're going to start to say, you know what? I love this research job, but I really want to be around people. Okay, so now I've got this go. How can I move that closer to the center of my target? How can I move closer? Instead of, well, this didn't work, so now I'm just going to stand here. I really blew it. Crap. What should I do? No, we're just looking at failure as feedback. And if you've read, who's read a biography about a very, maybe a successful entrepreneur or a successful person in any type of research background, medical school? Has anybody read any biographies about anybody who's gone before them? Okay, this is a great thing to do. Story teaches us a lot. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Walt Disney. Does anybody know who Walt Disney is? Hopefully you all do. Hopefully you're not studying that hard, right? Okay. So Walt Disney did not begin with Magic Mountain and roller coasters. He began as an animator. Most of us know that in the early 1900s, 1920s, 1930s. And when he first started, he was really not that well known. It took him a decade. So think, how old are you now? Maybe if you're 23 and you were 13, if you started doing something, it took him a decade to come up with one character that was of note, that anybody even cared about. And that character's name was Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. And this character got famous, and he had a team of animators come around him, and they all had to draw. Because back then, you didn't have, like, Pixar, who was like, oh, we can do a program to make the face change when he talks. No, you had to literally draw each frame by hand. So he had a group of animators around him who drew Oswald the Lucky Rabbit with him. Well, somebody in New York City, he was out in LA, somebody in New York City found out about his successful, new character, and came to his office and hired all his other animators, rendering his work useless because he can't draw all those, pages himself. So all his animators moved to New York City, and here he is, feeling totally screwed over, right? He took 10 years, came up with one character, and this one guy just pulled out all of his, his manpower beneath him. So he had to make a decision. He was either going to go, move to New York, and basically sell himself out, because he wasn't going to get paid anything near what he was worth. So he was going to get paid a fraction of what he should have been for his intellectual property. And he decided, you know what? I'm just going to move closer to the center of my target. He didn't see it as a failure. So next he came up with another character. Guess what his next character was? Mickey Mouse! So, that he's a perfect example. If you look at anybody who's been really successful in life in a measurable way, both in influence and we can count how much money he made. Obviously, he's cryogenically frozen, so that's kind of cool. That's kind of a cool arrival point. You got anybody who knows anything about that? Cryogenics? Is that even a thing here? Is that a real thing? No one knows? Not here? It's a thing.
Not realistic right now.
It's not realistic yet, okay.
Beginning stages, I guess.
Okay, so we'll defrost him in 100 years, something like that. Okay. So he thought more like that. Failure is feedback. Betrayal, we're all gonna have those moments where we feel betrayed. And he just thought, I'm just gonna move closer to the center of my target. I'm gonna keep working. I'm not gonna pretend that this huge door just shut on me and I'm done. As you can imagine, after he came up with Mickey Mouse, his fame went through the roof. Obviously, if any of you have been to Disney World, the Mickey's heads are everywhere. So he really did make it through that. I want you to think about stories like that as you move into your future. What can I do to move to the center of my target? Sometimes I'm going to hit stuff that's going to be killer. I'm going to love it. Sometimes I'm going to try stuff and it's just going to fall flat and I'm going to enjoy it. And that is okay. That's the stage you're in life. That's perfectly natural. And at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is move you closer to who you really are and what you're made to do. Step we're going to take tonight, I'm going to teach you 5 attitudes that are on a spectrum. And I'm going to label those attitudes for you, and you're going to quickly see which ones you engage with to get done what you want to get done every day. So let's take the example of the job hunt, okay? There's 5 different attitudes I can take to the job hunt. The first one is a victim mentality. A victim attitude says, oh, nothing's working out for me, this is harder than I thought, no one's helping me. A victim is somebody who's at the effect of their circumstances. So it's somebody who takes, man, half of college students don't even get a job or they're underemployed when they get out. That's going to be me. Oh, I don't know if I can do this. We worry. Oh, I shouldn't have done that interview. I should have done that internship last summer. It really didn't help me. Oh, we spin all the negative stuff in our life and we are a victim. And we all do this. We all have, this isn't like something you are labeled forever, but there's moments. I bet on some mornings you feel, when you're laying in bed, you feel overwhelmed. You might feel kind of helpless. I don't even know what to do next. I'm just probably going to watch House of Cards on Netflix for a while to kind of numb this and maybe go away, right? Maybe you watch New Girl. I don't know. Maybe I watch one of those too. But basically, a victim mentality is when you're at the effect of your circumstances. You're feeling overwhelmed and you're having trouble moving forward. How many people have felt that at some point in college? If you haven't, you are not a human being. Okay, great. There's no superheroes, Avengers in here. Okay. The next mentality or attitude that you can take on is that of a fighter. So maybe you're one of these people. Maybe you know somebody in your class who's like this, who's always like, hey, what'd you get on the last test? And that everything is a competition, constantly looking to be on top. We use this attitude a lot in the business world. I have an assessment that we take into the corporate world, and we find that this is the attitude inside of a corporation, typically inside of a business, is a competition attitude. I've got to beat Bill on his sales if I want to get to the next level, if I want to get a promotion. It's very common. This fighting mentality can get you what you want, more than a victim. The challenge is that when you're always in that mentality of like, I've got to beat these people, I've got to beat these people, it's exhausting. It will wear you out. And you'll also feel yourself kind of flip-flopping. If somebody beats you, you suck and you're the worst. If you're on top, you feel like $1 million. And that's just exhausting. We're not really made to live like that. So if you have a lot of that competitor in you, certainly we can channel it. But what if there was an even better way to handle your attitude as you look for a job? So competition attitude. Has anybody been going to an interview and somebody else is sitting in the room who's also interviewing for that job? Does that happen to anybody else? You're sitting in that room and you're thinking, uh-oh, she didn't wear heels, if you're a girl. If you're a guy, I don't know if you notice that kind of stuff. But we kind of add each other up and we do a little calculation. Okay, I think I could beat her. I think I can do it, right? That long term is just not good for us. That's not really how leaders think. So you'll notice if that's something you use. I used it to get the SAT score I did. I had to beat my ex-boyfriend. Typical story. And once I beat him, I stopped trying. It was effective because I did better on the SATs than I would have otherwise. But long term, that type of mentality drains us. The third attitude we can take is the rationalizer. A rationalizer has more energy and creativity than somebody who's always fighting. And a rationalizer says, all right, I really want to get this job. I know that there's 100 people applying for it, and they're going to take one person. So, yeah, I really want it, but I'm also going to prepare myself in case it doesn't work out. I'm going to rationalize my way through this and not make it personal if I don't get the 1 out of 100 slots, right? So rationalizers may be thinking more in the future. They're removing their emotions. When we look for jobs, I have a lot of my clients who feel very tossed with their self-worth when they don't get a job that they really wanted. And that's draining. If somebody doesn't want you for a specific position, you get to decide how personal that is. It doesn't have to be personal. And somebody who's able to rationalize and say, this isn't personal. It's just, I didn't get the spot. That's all it has to mean. It doesn't have to mean I'm a failure or anything like that. So far we've talked about the victim, somebody who's always fighting, and then a rationalizer. The next attitude you can take on in this season of your life is the giver. What? Yeah. A giver would say something like, man, this is a tough season. And you know what? It's tough for all my friends. What can we do to encourage each other? What can I do for myself to honor my holistic living? What can I do to honor my values? I'm going to make sure to keep pouring into myself so that I don't get worn out. This is somebody who's thinking about giving and receiving. Somebody who's thinking about compassion towards themselves. I'm going to take it easy on me. I work my tail off. I'm not going to beat myself up every time I don't get an A, or if I'm not the very tippy top of the class. And I'm going to be this type of person you can imagine gets to float through life a little bit easier. Not that they're not going to be a high performer, but they're just not getting kind of thrown around by, oh, if I don't get this, it means I'm the worst. If I get it, it means I'm the best. They're rising above that, and they're seeing people matter, life, this moment is about giving to other people, showing compassion towards them and myself. We're going to get through this together. So that's an interesting attitude you can take on in the university setting. And you'll find people in the university setting who take this on end up doing really well in the real world. So I have a client who was the president of her university. Why would you do that? You're going to give away all that time, have people bugging you all the time. She did it because she wanted to serve her university. She wanted to be a representative of her university. Well, obviously, she also did it because she knew it would look good on her resume. But truly, in her heart, she did it because she wanted to serve other people. And now, when she went to go look for a job and they find out, oh, she's the president of her university, she served other people, she looked for opportunities to give her life and her time away, it was very easy for her to get a job. She didn't need to have a fighting mentality. She wasn't a victim. She chose to move forward and serve other people. And it came back around to her in a very meaningful way. So the fifth attitude, as you can see, victim is like the hardest to move forward with. A fighter, you got a little punch in you. You can keep moving forward in this process as you're applying for jobs. A rationalizer, they're going to be able to handle the positives and negatives that come their way. A giver is looking outside of even themselves, looking how they can serve other people. And the most potent attitude you can have to get a job is to be an entrepreneur, to think like an entrepreneur, to think about opportunity. Opportunity is, a no is still an opportunity. I didn't get this job, well, it wasn't meant for me, I'm moving on, I'm moving towards the center of my target, what else can I do? Somebody who thinks in opportunity doesn't get swayed every day. Oh, I didn't get that job, it means I'm the worst. They don't even think like that. They're thinking about what's the next opportunity for me to take. This challenge can be good or bad. I'm going to make it good for me. This is how, in this last year, I've gone to school to understand how people work. And I've changed my brain to an opportunity mindset. And people offer me jobs off the street when they meet me. I am not kidding. This has really happened. Because the employers see, oh, you're able to rise above. You're not getting stuck in the mire. You're looking for ways to give back, but you're also looking for ways to open up opportunities for my company. I want you on board. So when you go into an interview and you aren't being critical of the obviously you'd never be critical of the company or whatever that you're going to work for, but you're also not being critical of yourself, and you're saying, I'm going to learn. I want to learn from you. I know I've got a lot to learn. And I see this as an opportunity to bring you my very best and to move this company forward. That attitude is irresistible. You can see how that's different than somebody who says, well, I'm better than so-and-so. I know I can knock this out. I was best in my class. There's no reason you shouldn't hire me. Whoa, that's a whole different mentality you're coming at with. People who are able to stay opportunity-minded, they're thinking like an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur says, I'm always looking for opportunities to increase my value in the marketplace. So you have your degree. Your degree does not equal a job. We all know that. What else can I do to increase my value? What opportunities what other skill sets? Maybe there's some certifications I can get. Maybe there's some summer learning experiences that I can add on to my resume. Maybe there's some leadership opportunities. An entrepreneur is pulling all the pieces together to have a very meaningful, powerful resume. They're not saying, well, I got my degree, so I should be getting some job. That's a victim. Can you guys kind of feel the difference between these different attitudes? When you go in to an interview, When you go into a classroom and you're thinking opportunity-minded, you're going to be attractive to other people. They're going to want you on their team. How many of you have worked on a team since you've been in college? Right? You'll see these attitudes come out. So, right, there's the person who doesn't do anything. You don't even know why they're in college, right? You give them just like, hey, all you need to do is print these out. We're going to do all you got to do, and they don't print them out. Whatever the worksheets are, whatever. You always have somebody in the group who's like that, right? Then you might have somebody who's competitive, who wants to lead the team, but maybe you're interested in leading the team. Nope, you're going to get rammed over. So you say, okay, you can lead the team. That's totally fine. I don't need to be the boss, right? We've all worked with somebody like that. Then you work with somebody who's kind of cool-headed and able to contribute, but isn't like super passionate or anything. That's a rationalizer. Somebody says, yep, I can do my part. The giver says, hey, how's everybody doing today? Let's make sure, does everybody have what they need to move forward? Sounds more like a leader. And the entrepreneur says, hey, we've all got some great opportunities here. What can we all do to win? Let's all win together. And so a lot of times when we are having a team experience, you've got a blend of attitudes mixing together. And depending on which one you are, that experience will be positive and encouraging or totally drain you. So be thinking about when you're moving forward every day, what attitude do I want to take on to make the most of this day? Right? Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions about those different types of attitudes you can take on? Okay, great. So, as we wrap up, today we talked about, the question was, I've got my degree, now what do I do? I've shared with you a couple different lies that we tend to believe, some belief systems that shape our behavior and actually shape our future. So if I think that my destiny is linear, and if I don't make it through this door, then I'm screwed. If I don't make it through this door, then I'm screwed. I will stop myself. I will get totally caught up in my fear. But if I think about moving closer to the center of a target, I have all this freedom. I have all these opportunities. We talked about the lie of how I attain success, what success is, and how failure is really a version of feedback, and how Walt Disney did that as well. He understood that. You took time for yourself to do a values assessment, to see how you are motivated, to see how you can use that as you continue to develop in your career path. And you can use it as a filter to make decisions about what you want to do. So we had a great example of holistic living. I'm not going to take a job that doesn't honor holistic living. Great. Now you're starting to get closer to the center of your target. And then we talked about the attitude that you need to be successful. And the ones that you want to use in all different situations, group settings, when you're going on an interview, is that of an entrepreneur, looking for opportunities, and also that idea of being a giver. And how can I contribute to this group? How can I make everybody's experience better? So it's really looking outside of yourself. That's what employers are looking for. Somebody who's able to look beyond themselves and serve other people. All right. Thank you so much for coming. You can check out, if you want to check out more of my work, you can go to my website, lindsaysmithcoaching.com. I think it might be on the page. If not, I'd love to talk to you after and give you a business card. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Just let me know that you were here, and I will definitely give you my attention and time. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you for having me, Preps.
And I wanted to thank Lindsay on behalf of Preps. So I think everybody got a lot of good information they can take away. And thank you very much, Lindsay.